Most poker players c-bet way too much or not nearly enough. Either way, they're bleeding money without even realizing it. But what if I told you there is an easy way to fix this? In this video, I'll teach you a few simple shortcuts to c-bet properly so you can stop making costly mistakes and start winning more pots with less effort. My name is Andreas Wagner and I'm the author of the ebook c-bet Mastery, which by the way you can get completely for free. Yep, that's right, completely free. No gimmicks, no hidden fees. The link is in the description below. First, let's quickly define what a continuation bet or c-bet actually is. A c-bet is when the player who raised pre-flop continues by betting on the flop. Simple enough, right? But here's where most players mess up. There are three big mistakes I see all the time. One, c-betting every single time, no matter what. This is a surefire way to burn money, especially on boards that don't favor your range. Here's an example. You raise pre-flop, the button calls. The flop comes 8-7-6 with two spades. This is a spot where so many players will c-bet, but it is a big mistake, as we will see. Why? Because this board is what I like to call a landmine. One wrong step and boom, your win rate is gone. Mistake number two, only c-betting when you hit. In some loose and splasher games, this might be a viable strategy because nobody is paying attention and players will still pay you off. But if you play against better players, this makes you way too predictable and good players will crush you for it. It's like only bluffing when you're holding a banana in your hand. People will catch on fast. And number three, using big bet sizes just to protect your hand. If you're just trying to protect your hand, you're thinking about c-betting all wrong. Protection isn't the main goal of c-betting. There are three reasons for betting in general, and this applies to c-betting as well. One, to get a weaker hand to call. Two, to get a better hand to fold. And three, to deny equity. Always think about which of these three reasons you want to accomplish. And you need to think about position, range advantage, and the board texture as well. So, how do you fix these mistakes? Let's break it down. The first thing to focus on is when to c-bet and when to check. And the key to this is understanding position and range advantage. If you're in position and you have the range advantage, you can c-bet close to 100% of the time. That means betting with your strong hands, your medium strength hands, your draws, and even total air. For example, say you raise an early position, the big blind calls, and the flop comes King 7 deuce. This is a great spot to c-bet almost everything because your range is much stronger than your opponent's. Out of position, it's the complete opposite. If you're out of position and don't have the range advantage, you should mostly be checking. Let's say you raise under the gun and the button calls. The flop is 10-8-6 rainbow. This is an absolute nightmare spot for you. The button's range connects way better with this board than yours does and you're out of position. Here, you should pretty much check your entire range. And look, I don't want to make this about solvers and game theory optimal play or GTO, because let's be honest, in live poker nobody plays GTO. I mean, the guy in seat 4 just check raised all in with pocket threes on a board full of overcards. Do you really think he's running PioSolver on his lunch break? But ironically, both GTO ranges and the range of your typical live opponent connect extremely well with this board. So the first big takeaway is, in position, bet aggressively. Out of position, slow down. Obviously, this is a massive simplification, but you will likely improve your results simply by following this advice. Now let's talk about how much to bet. The best c-bet size depends on four things. Position, are you in or out of position? Range advantage, who has the stronger overall range? Nut advantage, who is more likely to have the absolute best hand, and range connectivity. How well does each player's range hit the board? And here I would like to introduce a c-betting flowchart. I believe Jonathan Little was the first poker coach to introduce this concept publicly, and it's so simple that even your uncle who still thinks poker is all about reading tells could use it. The idea is that you ask a series of questions. The first question is, do I have the range advantage? If the answer is no and you still want to bet, you c-bet big, something like 2/3 pot. And remember, here we're not deciding whether to c-bet, only what size to use after we have determined that we want to c-bet. When we don't have the range advantage, we will indeed often elect to check, but when we bet big. If the answer to the question about the range advantage is yes, then we have more questions to ask. Do we have the nut advantage? If the answer is no and we still want to c-bet, then we go small. Small means around 1/3 pot. If the answer is yes, then we have yet another question to ask. How well does our opponent's range connect with this flop? Here we are basically looking at whether a fairly big portion of his range will have hit this board. And hitting can mean a pair, but it can also mean a flush draw or a straight draw. So, for example, if we raise from early position and the big blind calls. If the flop is King 7 deuce rainbow, the connectivity will be low for our opponent. Yes, he might have a king or a 7 or even a deuce, but he also has Queen Jack suited, 9-8 suited, Queen 9 suited, Ace Jack offsuit. Whereas if in the same scenario the flop is 10-8-5 with 2 clubs, then it is a very different picture. The majority of his range will have either a pair or a flush draw or at least a gut shot. Only few hands miss this flop completely, and those hands would be primarily overcards. So back to the flowchart. If his range connectivity with the board is low, then once again we choose the small c-bet size. And if it is high, then we choose the big size. Following this simple decision tree will make sure you're using the right bet sizes at the right times. So to c-bet properly, remember these 3 things. 1. Don't autopilot. Adjust based on position and board texture. 2. In position, c-bet aggressively. Out of position, be more cautious. 3. Choose your bet sizes wisely. Bigger isn't always better. But there is an even simpler way of choosing when to c-bet and what size to use. I cover this easy hack in my free ebook c-bet Mastery. And I also talk about c-betting in multi-way pots, 3-bet pots, and how to play the turn after a c-bet. There you will also get the c-betting flowchart so you can study it in your own time. Just click the link in the description below. And if you want another simple hack to improve your win rate fast, then I would recommend using Negreanu's golden rule. In this video here, I will tell you all about it.